Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me know if this works, guys. See if it's working. Sound coming. Can you guys hear? Okay, let me just try and get out. There were some technical issues with this, so hopefully those technical issues shouldn't be there anymore. So let me know. Put in the comments if you guys can hear, and then we'll start, inshallah. See if it's working or not. Yeah, can you guys hear sound? Is the sound coming through? Sound, vision. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Right, excellent. So, see, that was the problem I had. So, let's have a look at some of your questions that you guys have. You can put your questions in the side, inshallah, and I will try to answer these as well. So I'm just going to check what kind of questions you guys have put up. I'm trying to remember where I left off last time. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Alright, so I think I've got the question. So let's start then. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Remember, if you guys got any questions, put them in the comments. Yeah, put them in the comments. And what do you guys think of my hat? Do you guys think this hat is good? Should I continue wearing it, or shall I get rid of it? Okay, so can you wipe over cotton socks? I think I did answer this one. Yeah, I think I answered this one before. Alright. Okay, I'll answer it anyway again, just for barakah. So, can you wipe over cotton socks in wudu? So, this is a very famous question that a lot of people ask, which is basically, we know from the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, he allowed wiping over leather socks, right? And he wiped over himself. We don't have much sort of like kind of conditions regarding the socks that are narrated. That's the issue. So we don't have like strict rules regarding them from the Quran or from the hadith. So the scholars derive the rulings regarding wiping over socks. So we know, like, fact number one, we know the Prophet ﷺ, he wiped over leather socks. Fact number two, we know that Sahabas wiped over leather socks. And fact number three is that there were many Sahaba who used to wipe over other forms of socks as well, right? Non-leather socks. So we know there's people that wiped over non-leather socks. But the issue is that what's the limit? Like, can you wipe over any footwear? Does it have to be a particular type of sock? What's the situation with that? So because we don't have an exact sort of like criteria for the nature of the sock, this is why the scholars have disputed this issue. So on one side of the scale, you have like the Malikis, who say that it has to be made from leather, right? It must be made from leather. You cannot wipe over any other material. And this was one of the early opinions of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala as well. And he said you can't wipe over anything which is a non-leather material. And then on the other side of the scale, you had others who simply said that it was basically a whole idea of footwear. So as long as you've got footwear on and you can walk in them a long distance, that's basically what the Prophet ﷺ was showing permissibility of. In other words, as long as your foot is covered to the heel, to the ankle, and you can walk in them for a long distance without it being uncomfortable and without it tearing or anything, then he goes, fine, you can wipe over it. This was opinion of some in the earlier. So then you have like opinions in the middle. What we have from the Hanafis, the early Hanafis, is that the socks, they have to fulfill main criteria is they have to be able to stand on the foot upright on their own, meaning like a sock does. And number two is that you have to be able to walk in them, right? And then you have other conditions like they shouldn't be thin, or they shouldn't be, such a material that they are translucent, transparent. So this is why, according to the Hanafis, the general Hanafis have said that the socks have to be thick enough that you can walk in them a long distance, right? And a byproduct of thickness is that it shouldn't be transparent, it shouldn't be like water shouldn't be able to get into it easily. Now, in today's times, we can make materials that are very, very strong. You can walk long distances, even though they can be transparent. So this is why nowadays there are like questions which people ask, is that imagine if Imam Abu Hanifa and the Sahibain knew of the materials that will be developed in the future, and what would they have said? So this is why Hanafis over the years have discussed this masala. Generally, Hanafis have criteria for this, but in reality, the early Hanafis didn't have a strict criteria for this. So what I would say is, as long as the socks are thick enough for a person to walk without shoes a long distance, like about 2 or 3 miles, and they won't tear easily, and it's comfortable on the foot, then it should be okay. Okay, next. Salam, I was not circumcised when I was a baby, young boy. I was weak as a youngster, but I'm fine now. I'm 27 years old, about to marry. Do I need to get circumcised as an adult? I fear complications of adult circumcision, unsure if it's fard. What I would suggest is speak to your doctor about it. Whatever the doctor kind of advises you. If the doctor says that the risk is very high of complications, then don't do it. According to Hanafis, it's considered sunnah mu'akkada, not wajib. But again, speak to a doctor who knows about these things, like preferably someone who is, they don't have to be necessarily Muslim, because circumcision is something which is generally understood in Western society now, right? Because the Jewish community do it as well, and many other non-religious people also prefer to have it done. So have a speak with your doctor. Whatever the doctor tells you, I would say you can take that advice. Okay, someone's asked a question, do I know Persian? Well, I studied Persian, Farsi. I studied when I was in madrasa. I had a bit of like, I had a few friends from Iran and from Tajikistan as well, and from those neighboring countries when I was studying in Pakistan, and they spoke Persian, right? So I would learn things from them, and I would study a few books as well in Persian. So I can read Persian, and I kind of understand. My Persian isn't that good, right? So I wouldn't be able to hold a conversation in Persian, so it's not that proficient. I don't think there's much need for studying Persian. I mean, personally, I don't think there's much of a need. You don't really kind of, you won't be less of an expert if you don't know Persian, right? Because all the classical book, Quran, Hadith, classical books are all Arabic sufficient. Unless you want to kind of like study a particular life of a particular scholar, Persian scholar, his writings, or maybe you're interested in something like, pursuing some sort of a certain era of books that are written, like in the Indian subcontinent maybe, or even in Iran and these places, Persia. Otherwise, there isn't really any need. Like, for example, there's no need to study Urdu. Like, you don't need to study Urdu to become a scholar. Yes, if you want to study the works of many people, the literature of many of the scholars in the Indian subcontinent, which are in Urdu, then you would need to learn Urdu, obviously. But to understand the Quran, understand the Hadith, you do not need to know Urdu. You obviously do need to know Arabic. That's the key, that is. And it's good. I mean, I understand Urdu. I can read Urdu. I can speak Urdu. Yeah, some of you guys might be shocked. I can read Pashto. I can speak Pashto as my mother tongue. And I've got some books in Pashto as well. But I'm not as proficient in Pashto as I am in English, right, in Arabic. All right. Next. What's the next question? Okay, can you do same YouTube videos in Farsi like the same you're doing Arabic? No, I won't be able to do that. I'd have to learn some very good Farsi for that. According to Hanafi madhab, can men wear platinum or palladium wedding rings? Can women wear white gold platinum? Right, so basically women, see, according to the Hanafi school, let me explain this masla here. So those of you guys who are a bit advanced in Hanafi fiqh will understand what I'm saying. Those of you who are not advanced in Hanafi fiqh, you inshallah will understand what I'm saying by the end of it. So you have basically, like from the Prophet ﷺ, you have narration which says that men are not allowed to wear gold. Right, that's like standard, that is across the board. Cannot wear gold. Okay, right, that's number one. Number two is that the Prophet ﷺ, on some narrations, he had a gold ring, but then he stopped wearing it. But we know he had a silver ring, and imprinted on there was Allah, Rasul, Muhammad, and he used to use that for stamping. The whole word ring in Arabic is a stamp. It's called a stamp. Right? The ring is called the stamp because you'd keep the ring with you and you'd stamp letters, official letters that came from other places. That's the second point. The third point is that we have certain narrations where certain people were wearing these certain types of material ring. Like for example, they were wearing sulfur rings, they were wearing iron rings, and some other stone. So when the Prophet ﷺ saw this, he said, why are you wearing the rings of the people of shirk or the people of Jahannam? Because like the idols were made from this particular type of stone and they had rings. So it was a kind of like, you could see this connection between the two. So he told him not to wear it, and iron as well. He told him not to wear it. So the Hanafis say that men cannot wear gold rings. Men cannot wear rings made from iron, sulfur, and that particular type of stone. Okay, so those, besides those four, can men wear other rings? So Imam Muhammad rahimahullah in the Hanafi school, we have a text from him, and this text is in Jami' al-Saghir, and what it basically says in there is, someone came to and asked him, can men wear gold? He said, no, except silver. No, except silver. So now when he said no except silver, was he saying no, you cannot wear any material ring except silver? Like he negated all the materials in the world except for silver? Or was he saying that no, you can't wear gold, but you can wear silver? So some of the Hanafis have disagreed with exactly what Imam Muhammad meant. In other words, if he was saying the first one, if he meant the first one, that means original ruling for men is they're not allowed to wear any rings, and there's only scope for silver because the Prophet ﷺ wore silver. If he had worn another ring, then we would have worn that as well. Okay, and the other second group of scholars, they say that no, those rings that are explicitly banned, you can't wear those, but anything besides that, there's scope for it. So you have this kind of like, although majority of the Hanafis, like Ibn Abidin and others, have taken the first opinion, the kind of strict opinion. So this is why there is this difference of opinion. So it's not a categorically illegal or impermissible thing for wearing. What I would say is, if there was types of rings which were permissible for men, which were available for men to wear, and they were not explicitly made from those things that the Prophet ﷺ said, there may be scope for a man to wear that. Right, that's what I would say. And because in the society that we live in, it's very difficult to try and get a specific ring of that nature. And now the function of a ring has changed as well. From it being a stamp, now it becomes just like this kind of like token of love or connection between two people. Yes. As for women, then women can wear any material besides those ones that were explicitly mentioned. Right, so they can wear gold as well, even, right, because that's fine for them. All right, next, is GH halal? Okay, GH is supposed to be some sort of like thing that makes you grow or something. I don't know. You'll have to speak to doctors about that. Okay. Okay, Salam. I understand that being gay is haram, but what about those who are bisexual or pansexual? Will they be seen as the same as those who are gay or not? And what about the rulings in regards to those who have these sexualities but do not act upon their feelings? So this is a common question that a lot of people ask, especially with LGBT movement, and many Muslims kind of like seeing blurred lines between the two. So the rule is, look, a person is not allowed to have sexual relations with someone who the Quran has not permitted. So you cannot have sexual relations with your mothers, with your daughters, with your sisters. You cannot have sexual relations with another man. You can, if you're a man, and with a woman if you're a woman, etc. Right? So what does a person do? So the person has to control their desires. Just like if a person wants to have fornication with mother, they're not allowed to. They have to control themselves, even if they have urges for it. So it's all about down to controlling your urges. Yes, if a person has these feelings, then they can't control those feelings. Try to control them if they can. If they can't control them, then you have to do sabr. You have to abstain as much as possible from all these things. Just the same as someone who is addicted to alcohol and they have urges to drink alcohol, it does not allow them to drink alcohol in any way at all. They have to control their urges and they have to, abstain from it. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Is a person able to give sadaqah on behalf of a living person? And if so, can they also give sadaqah on behalf of an unborn child? I.e., someone announces a pregnancy on that child's behalf, giving sadaqah jariyah. See, this is a difficult one because someone who is not born technically is not considered to be someone who is living. So therefore, I would say no. Giving sadaqah jariyah on behalf of someone who is not born yet would not be until they were born, basically. So let's say there's a woman, she's announced she's pregnant, and then someone wants to build a masjid and for sadaqah jariyah for this child, right? The sadaqah jariyah would start once they're born. Now maybe I'm just trying to think aloud here, maybe there might be some sort of a scope if the child was of a certain age, in other words had reached 16 weeks or more. Yeah, if the child had reached 16 weeks or more in the pregnancy, then maybe there might be scope there. Okay. Because technically, these kind of reward and things, they all have to go towards someone who's living. So if someone's not living, then I don't think, I'm not too sure, but I'm just thinking on the top of my mind. I haven't really kind of looked into this, but that's what I'm thinking. Okay, next. Assalamu alaikum. Alright, that's done. Okay, assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask about what the right hand possesses. What does this mean and why is this permissible? Right hand possessing meaning the issue of slaves in Islam. What I would suggest is Google or YouTube Dr. Jonathan Brown. So he's written a book on slavery and he's also done some YouTube videos on it as well. Very, very good. Check them out. The thing about these kind of questions is, one of the biggest problems that Muslims generally have with these kind of questions is that it's very difficult for us to sometimes understand something in Islam because of the shift and changes of society. So social shifts and changes result in people finding it very difficult to understand how things work, right? For example, like having a man marrying 4 wives. If a person lives in a Western society, he finds it very disturbing sometimes, or a woman might find it very disturbing because they're not used to it, or it seems unfair, or it seems like this or like that. So these kind of things, these require understanding of how societies work, how cultures work, right? It has to require a person to be able to go out from their own society, the framework of their society, and look into another society, right? So I would suggest check out those videos, and I think he's explained it very well. Okay, wa alaikum, assalamu alaikum. I have recently started helping in a project which involves interacting with people from opposite gender, mainly on social media, but at times via email too. I'm very careful that I don't reply to any private messages on social media. My interactions are professional and respectful. Members of my family follow me on SM, so there's not even a remote chance of me being slightly relaxed in my interactions unless it's a couple of young men I know personally. However, I do share my personal likes and dislikes and other info that would give one a glimpse of my personality. I also have my picture in Chadar as my DP. Now, despite all this care, in less than a month, I had men sending me messages of love in my DM and sharing their pics. I have blocked them now, but my question is that as a Muslim woman, I know how important it is for us to come out and help other women and be their role models. But when we do that, this is what we have to put up with. When I discuss this with anyone, they say this is why women are told to restrict themselves to teachings other women in Parda and not be active on places like SM where there's no segregation. So my question is that, in your opinion, as a Muslim woman, do I grow a thick skin and block people like them and just concentrate on my work, or do I take that as a lesson and try to stick to more traditional mode of teaching? Okay, this is a good question. First of all, I'm not a woman, as you guys can tell. So these kind of answers, for me to give a very remote sort of answer from the perspective of a man, I think it would be unfair. This would require the answer from behalf of a lady, someone who's experienced in this field, someone who is maybe even a scholar or something, to be able to answer this. However, what I would say is, the thing we have to take into consideration is social media is a very, very strange place, right? It's a double-edged sword. There are so much benefits that you can gain from social media, and at the same time there is so much evil that is in social media, and there's lots of people out there, because there's anonymity. A lot of people can do things, say things, and feel as though they're getting away with it, right? So people can abuse people online. People can say things that they would never say in face to face to a person, right? And they can do all these kind of things, and it's like they're behaving very unnatural, you can say, very unnatural. So what I would say is, look, the set of rules for online, I think social media needs to be different from the set of rules in public sphere. So online, I would say a person should be more cautious, should be more vigilant online, and should behave more professional online, right? This is how I think it should be done. And unless a person knows someone very well, especially if it's like a lady or something, and she is interacting with other men, unless she knows them very well, and there's no fear of anything bad happening, the person should behave professionally in that sense. And there are also like measures that you can take online as well. Like, you can block people, you can also limit your access to your social media as well. You can put restrictions on there. So you can report people as well. So because of that, I would say, look, do what you think is correct, right? Ask your heart. Do I think this is right, or do I think this is wrong? Instead of trying to ask a scholar what he thinks, better to ask a female scholar, someone who has experience and is considered outwardly upright as well. I would say that. Okay. Next, Salams, do you have an opinion on recent controversy of Al-Falah Academy run by graduates of Darul Umm Bari who stole money from lots of people and who bought the madrasa on a riba mortgage? I have no idea who Al-Falah Academy is. Yeah, sorry, I don't know. Is it which city that's in? So I wouldn't be able to comment on that. And plus, even if I did know, I don't think I'd know the ins and outs of it. Okay. I need to understand how intentions work, because it confuses me a lot, especially because of many hadith that state that Allah Ta'ala wouldn't accept any deed unless it's purely for Him. What if we do something 90% for the sake of Allah, but 10% because we like the person we are helping? Does that mean all our efforts go to waste? For example, if someone gives sadaqa to someone they like a lot. Alright, so basically, to understand this question, we need to understand what does it mean to do something for the sake of Allah. So in a nutshell, what it basically means is anything which ultimately it falls under the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, like a person says the kalima la ilaha illallah, that's for the sake of Allah. A person prays their 5 times salat, that's for the sake of Allah. A person helps their neighbor, that's for the sake of Allah. A person shows some kindness to someone on the street, that's for the sake of Allah. A person let someone go in front of them in a road, that's for the sake of Allah. A person even speaks up against something bad happening to someone, that's also for the sake of Allah. A person calls the police because someone's in trouble, that's for the sake. All of these things are for the sake of Allah. Remember that. All of these things are for the sake of Allah. Just because the word Allah is not mentioned there, or our mind is not thinking of Allah, it doesn't mean they're not for the sake of Allah. So when Imam Malik rahimahullah was asked about what is sabilullah, like in the Quran this word comes very frequently, what is the sabil Allah? He said subul Allah kathira, the paths of Allah are many. In other words, it's not like we have to consciously think of Allah when we're doing every single action. The ultimate, it's like kind of like, you can imagine like an umbrella, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is at the top, and all these actions below that all fall under the actions which are for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, does that make sense? So this is why a lot of people kind of get confused in this. So let's think about it this way. If you're a doctor and you're helping patients, you're doing it for the sake of Allah. Even if you're earning, you are doing it for the sake of Allah, right? Because you're doing something which is good. You're helping someone. You could be a mechanic and you're doing it for the sake of Allah. Yes, you need an earning, you need funds, you need money, you need a life, helping your family, helping your children. Just like the Prophet ﷺ said that, if a man puts a morsel of food in his spouse's wife's mouth, this is pleasing Allah. Why? Because it's the rule basically is that if he done it to another person, in other words, someone who was haram for him to do it, that would be considered a sin. So therefore, doing it for the person who's permissible is automatically rewarding. So all of these things comes under. Now, if a person understands this, it makes them more motivated to do more good, right? So you can imagine if a person now thinks, right, I don't have to stay in the masjid all day for me to do things for the sake of Allah. I can actually do things for the sake of Allah from the comfort of my home. I can do it on the street. I can do it in the bus. It's so many things. So yes, going back to this question, is that yes, this would be considered the sake of Allah, because as long as there's no haram action involved. Yeah, as long as there's no haram action involved, it would be considered for the sake of Allah. Yeah. Okay, hello, is this man telling the truth at 7:30 about wudu? Okay, so this is a video they've sent. I can't really tell. I'm gonna have to watch the whole thing. It looks very long. So if you can, if you can just send me the snippet of the video, unless you want me to watch a 40-minute video, I can't do that. Right, so you have to remember, although I'll be watching it for the sake of Allah, but there's other sake of Allahs that are more pressing, I think. Yeah, sometimes you've got to give preference to some things that are for the sake of Allah over other things that are for the sake of Allah as well. Okay, so now what kitabs do you teach? Alright, so what kitabs do I teach? So a lot of people ask me this, let me tell you now. So basically I teach spoken Arabic, I teach fiqh, chapters of buyu, basically transactions. I teach usul fiqh nul anwar. I teach usul hadith, which is at the moment it's my own notes, but then we teach nukhbat al-fikr and muqaddim Salah. I teach hidayah. I teach Tirmidhi. I teach what else do I teach? I teach the fiqh again, and lots of fiqh books I teach, lots of usul books, and then that's basically where I teach. So in a Sofa Institute, those are the kind of books I teach. And then Quduri as well, I teach here, Quduri. Then in the online, I teach some people Mutanabbi. I teach some other various books as well. Usul Sarakhsi as well. Yeah, and obviously everything on YouTube falls under teaching as well. So alhamdulillah, may Allah accept it from me and for all of us. I remember once my teacher, he said, when he was talking about Imam Nawawi, he said Imam Nawawi in Al-Madrasa Al-Ashrafiyya, which was in Sham, he used to teach in a day about 18 books in a day. I think it was more than 18 books. Like 18 books in one day, imagine that. So from morning, you can imagine how busy his schedule would have been. 18 books. And my teacher himself used to teach roughly about 18 books in a day as well. Because I remember from Fajr, all the way after Fajr, he used to teach us about 6 books. All the way to about 9, 10 o'clock, he'd give us some breakfast. And then he'd go to a madrasa, he'd teach over there until about 1 o'clock. And then on a motorbike, back of a motorbike. And then he'd, not teach on the back of a motorbike, but he used to get there on the back of a motorbike. Those who live in Karachi understand that. And then he used to teach after Zohr, come back, teach, have a little rest after Asr, teach in the evening. His schedule was like rampacked. So yeah, that's basically that. Next, what is a son or daughter's duty in terms of obedience to one's parents? When does not complying become sinful? Right, so this is like a general. Now, with these kind of things, questions regarding what are the limits between a husband and a wife, and what are the limits between children and parents. The thing is, Sharia has not kind of given us a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 criteria. What the Sharia has done is kind of left it according to the custom of society. according to what is considered to be respect, what is considered to be the urf of the society. If we understand that, then it becomes very easy for people to get on with each other. Otherwise, if we take exactly, this is how a husband has to treat his wife, this is how a wife has to treat the husband, then what's going to happen is people are just going to be living with each other like, employer and employee, right? Each one is going to be watching, have they fulfilled their duties or not. So the way that you should live, same with the parents and children, is what can you do for the other person? That's how you should live, right? So you compromise sometimes they do things for you, sometimes you do things for them. So when it comes to children, son or daughter's duties, in Islam, it's all to do with giving obedience, showing respect to the parents as well. Yes, if the parents clearly tell you to do something which is contradictory to the teachings of Islam, you cannot do that. That's categorical. Besides that, sometimes you just got to use your common sense. Someone's exhausted, come back from work, they're exhausted, and the parents have phoned them and said, bring us food. Right now, you can do it, but if a person is really exhausted, the parents should understand that they're going to be very tired. They could just say to them, look, I'm sorry, I'm tired. Can I order you food? Or maybe can someone else get food? Use common sense. So that wouldn't be going against, yes, some people might feel, if my parents have asked me to do this, how can I not do it for them? Alhamdulillah, that's good, right? But, you also have to take into consideration your other duties as well in the day. Alright, so if someone in a game can purchase something with actual money that gives them random characters which could range from the best to the worst, is this a form of gambling since the person does not know what they will get? It all depends. That's a very generic question that you've asked, but it all depends exactly on the terms and conditions, what you're buying, and if you know what you're buying is worth what you're buying. Right, so as long as there is no sort of like dubious sort of transactions taking place, then it's fine. I think it's fine. But I think these games, they do have their terms and conditions. So because they have terms and conditions, people cannot just gamble. It's not just throwing money and saying you're not getting anything back. Okay, do we have to do parda from angels? I've lost count how many times I've been told by Pakistani aunties to do that and they heard it from their imam sab. Forget doing parda from angels, bhai. You have to do parda from the walls, from the bed, from the ceiling, from the stars, from the trees. Yeah. So this is, the fiqh of Pakistani aunties, right? Cover your head when the azan is heard, or cover your head when, I don't know what else. Some bayan, hearing some bayan or something. So these kind of things are just cultural things. There's nothing in the Quran or nothing in Hadith where you have to do this. The only things that you have to do parda from is two things. Yeah, one is parda in salat, one is covering up in salat, and one is covering up in front of those males that are not close kin. That's all. There's nothing else you have to cover up. The third is when you die, the earth will cover you up. You have to be covered up then. Yeah, so the earth covers you up three times of parda. Besides that, no, you don't have to cover up from angels. No. Yeah, there is a narration which says that you shouldn't be fully naked at home. Like at home, you shouldn't show unnecessarily your private parts, right? So the private parts should not be exposed for no reason. That kind of makes sense because it's like common sense that in your home, just in case someone comes in, that you should be, relatively covered. But otherwise, no, you don't have to do parda from angels. Okay, call your kitten Chanda. Yeah, it's a beautiful name, means moon from Chand. Okay, so Chanda, I'd call my cat Chanda, but then, a problem is that I want my cat to sleep at night. I don't want my cat to come out at night. And the moon only comes out at night, so I think Chanda might be a bit tricky there. So Jazakallah khair for all your questions. Now I will check out... okay, let's check out your questions now. So, wa alaikum assalam, mashallah to everyone. What's the best book written on learning basic Arabic? I think the best book, the most or easiest book to follow is a book that I always show you guys. I don't know where it is. Right, it's a book it's called Nahw al-Arabi by Sheikh Salih Samurai. Very easy, modern, very, very good. Salih Samurai. Yeah, all his books are excellent. I would suggest to get them. The problem is, like I told you before about Arabic grammar, a lot of Arabic grammar books are designed for Arab native Arab speakers, right? It's like, imagine you know English, but you don't know all the grammar to English. And then someone comes along and says, shall I teach you grammar to English? And when they teach you grammar of English grammar, they're teaching you as a person who knows English already. So you know English already. You're not like refining your English. You're not improving your English really. What you're doing is you're learning the grammar rules just to kind of tweak your English. But now if you taught that same English grammar to someone who was a non-native English person, Arab person, African person, whatever, then they're going to find it very difficult. So I think this is a big problem. That so the 17, for example, the 17 lessons that I've designed are designed for English speakers. That's how it's designed. It's designed for English speakers, and it gets them from basics. And mashallah, we've had so much success with people studying. Some of you guys on here as well, mashallah, students as well. And very recently, mashallah, we've had a sister join as well, who is actually blind as well, mashallah. And I don't know how that's going to go, but alhamdulillah, first homework was received, and excellent. Subhanallah, imagine someone who can't see is able to understand Allah's words, Quran. Yeah, so people from around the world, alhamdulillah, joined the course. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala barakah in our efforts and the efforts of all my students, all you students, guys. Shout out to all of you guys for all your hard work and learning. Okay, let's check this out. Omar, mashallah, Ustad Zaman, Sister Yamna, a question. If someone is praying their salah at the end of its time and it's not clear whether the prayer has ended or not, should they make the niyyah of performing it on time, or should they? So what I would say is, if they're unsure that the time has ended, consider it to be still there, unless they find it later on. So if it's like you're unsure if the time has ended, consider the time to still be in, because we have a rule in fiqh which is certainty is not cancelled out by doubt. So as long as you're certain the salat time started, but you're uncertain of it finishing, it's like you can consider it still be there. But if you find out later on that you prayed outside the time, then it'd be better to do qada. Okay, yes, continue wearing hat covers the ears. Yep, excellent. That's what I've done. I've saved myself from the cold. Tirate, assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, I'm very good. Jazakallah khair. Mashallah. Thank you very much. Sister Yamna, and if you've completed the prayer with the niyyah for the prayer on time and you realize the prayer has ended, does it need to be repeated as qada? So there's two opinions here regarding of whether it should be repeated. One of the opinions according to Hanafis is you don't have to, and the other one is you do. What I would say is, if you have done this for many prayers, then you don't have to repeat it. If you've done it for one or two, I would suggest repeating it, just to stay away from the ikhtilaf. Okay, hi, hello, says, what is a good basic book for Hanafi fiqh and contains Dalail Sheikh? Mulana Taha Quran recommended us Muqallideen equip ourselves with Dalail, even the current climate of Quran and Sunnah. Okay, so basically, I'm gonna, inshallah, I don't know if you've seen my crash course on the madhabs, right? So I'm going to be continuing that. Hopefully I'm going to be doing one where I'm going to be talking about Hanafi fiqh. The thing with Hanafi fiqh is, Hanafi fiqh is basically trying to understand the case studies of Abu Hanifa and his students. So the Prophet ﷺ, after him were the Sahaba, and there were like many records of historic cases of fiqh that were being passed down. Alright, so there was like this passing down, and when Abu Hanifa's time came, it was after the Sahaba, they studied these cases and they discussed cases that were not discussed by the previous generation. So they started to create this framework of how to answer the fiqh, basically using what's reached them from the Quran, from the Sunnah, from the Sahaba. They started to create this sort of like framework. And so now any question they have which is not mentioned, they begin to try and understand principles. They develop their approach and principles, and they begin to answer it. So when we look at Hanafi fiqh does not really need the hadith approach, because the case studies are directly from the Quran, Sunnah and the Sahaba. So the hadith approach actually comes in later. So that's why the access that the Hanafis had to the early sources was stronger and greater than the hadith sources. Right, so now if you're going to be using hadith, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to break their pristine sort of like structure that they've built based upon the early years, the Salaf's practice. right? So now you're going to be using these hadith and you're going to be adjusting, and it just causes a lot of problems for that. So that's why I'm not really keen on people using hadith to try and explain the Hanafi fiqh, because it was not the hadith that we have now. They actually had the stronger version of those hadith, because imagine Abu Hanifa only has one or two links between him and the Prophet ﷺ, right? So his chain is much stronger than a person who comes later and has 7 links between him and the Prophet ﷺ, right? So that's why it's a very sort of like tricky situation when people want to try and support. So those people who want to use hadith to try and explain the Hanafi fiqh, what they're basically doing is they're doing it as a response to Shafi fiqh. Usually that's how it is. So Shafis are using lots of hadith approach in understanding fiqh, but Abu Hanifa came much early, so his approach was more of a practice, a widespread Sahaba practice and Tabi'in practice approach, right? Fatwa approach. And this is why you have this kind of like, later on some Hanafis get a bit confused, where do we use hadith to kind of revisit Hanafi cases, right? Do we kind of say, okay, well, we've come across this hadith, but Abu Hanifa said this, Sahibain have said this, what do we do in this situation? So it becomes very tricky. Otherwise, if you do want a book on Dalail, then I would suggest there's several books that you can use. Athar al-Sunan is one by Imam Nimawi. There's I'la al-Sunan by Zafar Ahmad Uthmani. These are 2 main ones that you can use. You can also use Nasb al-Raya by Zaylai. These are 3 I think should be sufficient. Okay. Wasalam, how is your kitty? Yes, alhamdulillah, kitty is very well. I don't know if you guys have seen the vlog I put up yesterday. So, alhamdulillah, she's doing well. Jazakallah khair for asking. Okay, why now? Assalamu alaikum. Is it okay for men to wear shorts while playing tennis that don't cover their knees? According to the Shafi school, it would be allowed, but according to Hanafis, it wouldn't be allowed. What I would suggest is that underneath they wear those kind of tight sport leggings that you can get, or long shorts, tight skin shorts that you can have. I would suggest wearing that. Okay, Wasiq wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Wasiq Sab, how's Europe? Because we might be out of Europe soon, so I need to find out what's happening there. If I undertake cardiovascular exercise and sweat profusely, is ghusl required and change of clothing articles? No. According to Hanafis, ghusl is only required in 4 situations. If a person ejaculates, if a person penetrates into a vagina, and number 3 is if a person has menstruation, or if a person has postnatal bleeding. This is the last 2 obviously only for women. Those are the 4. So nothing else will necessitate ghusl. Okay, Sister Fawzia, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hi, hello. Can you explain the masala of asking your local imam fiqh questions, or do we have to seek out mashayikh from our madhab? Okay, so you can ask your local imam. As long as you're confident with his knowledge, it's fine. You don't have to search for your own particular madhab, because it becomes very difficult on people, right? How they go and search for it. So you just ask any of your local imams, as long as 2 things: you're happy with their knowledge and you believe they're upright, and whatever answer they give you, you can act upon it. If you're not comfortable with their answer, you don't feel that they gave the right answer, then that's fine. You can ask another person. Okay, I want to memorize the whole Quran. Any tips? Yeah, my suggestion would be repetition, and get hold of people who are also memorizing. Like maybe join a class. That would be the best thing. Okay, why now? If we were very tired, can we pray while leaning against a wall during Qiyam? If you're very tired, yes, you can do that. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if one is very tired, then he should rest and then pray. Right. So if you're very, very tired and you're not going to get up again, then pray whilst leaning against a wall. But otherwise, have a rest, drink some coffee, do a little jog around the room, maybe some star jumps, or watch my YouTube channel, and then you should be okay. Jasad, does the nikah need to be conducted in the girl's choice of mosque or boy's choice of mosque? Is it culturally to believe that the one side has authority to choose? No one has authority to choose. Again, it's just a sort of like convention, just based upon whatever the culture is used to. So anyone can make the decision. Main thing is, as long as both sides are happy. If people are going to be arguing about where the nikah is going to take place, then I feel sorry for that marriage. So just do it anyway. If the guy's mosque, if the guy says he want to do mosque A and the girl side wants to do mosque B, choose mosque C. I would say, just go to mosque C, yeah, and say, right, let's just choose mosque C, and that's it. Why now? Why now? Have you written books in Pashto? No, I haven't written any books in Pashto. Yeah. My Pashto isn't like 100% like poetry level Pashto. Yeah. So a lot of people have asked me sometimes to give some talks in Pashto, and I can give a talk in Pashto. But the thing is, it's like it's like someone who doesn't know English and tries to give a talk in English and knows English, but it doesn't know it at indigenous level. It kind of the audience doesn't benefit that much. So I'm very particular about that. I like the audience to benefit. And if I am not comfortable with the language, if I'm not indigenous to it, then I know the audience is not going to benefit because they won't be able to kind of appreciate it as an indigenous person. Okay, how are we supposed to take in opinions of ulama? It is some say music is totally haram and music is haram to a certain extent. Okay, in that, yes, very good question. This kind of situation would require a person, like I said, go to a scholar who you trust, go to a scholar who you see as upright. Do not listen to online scholars, I would say. Social media scholars, online scholars, try to avoid them. Try to get in contact with a scholar who you personally know, right, or who you personally have some sort of like connection with. Try to ask them. Those are the ones who are more reliable than social media scholars, because social media scholars, you don't know who they are, you don't know what their qualifications are, you don't know much about them. Just because they've got a big following does not mean that they're right. Like, except for me, obviously. Yeah, you can listen to me, but that's the truth. Is that you should connect with someone who you're comfortable with, and you feel that on the day of judgment you can say to Allah, Ya Allah, I was happy with this person. Whatever answer he gave me, I was happy with it. So if you're happy with that particular person, then follow. Okay, 95 Gred. What kind of name is that? Whoa, 95 Gred sounds cool. Can a Hanafi attend Jummah in a Shafi masjid where khutbah is delivered in a local dialect but it meets the requirements of praising salutations verse in the Quran? Yes, they can pray there. It's fine, totally fine. Muhammad Sheikh, Assalamu alaikum. I do Jama'at with my father at home for some of the prayers due to his age. Prayers sitting on a chair. Would his position be on my right if I'm leading the prayer? Yes, ideally on the right, right? But if he's on the left, it's fine. But ideally on the right. Okay, Ashley Latif, wa alaikum assalam. I have a doubt. Is it compulsory to attend funeral, especially ladies in Islam? No, it's not compulsory. In fact, it's considered to be a communal obligation, meaning as long as a few people have attended, no one else has to attend. So as long as about 2 or 3 people have attended, it's fine, right? No one else has to attend. So it's not like 5 times prayer, which is a individual obligation. So, but it's good to go. Obviously, the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned anyone who goes to a funeral, janazah, gets the reward of one the size of a mountain, basically, of reward. Ultimate Challenger Gamer. Yes, I actually played FIFA the other day. Yeah, so my brother has a PS4, so I played. Right, I beat him as well. I think I beat him. Yeah, I beat him. So what games are you good at? Salam Muftab, what is the ruling on Milad? Okay, I think this is a common question, which is the season, and I'll talk about this. Look, we all believe in Allah, we all believe in the Prophet ﷺ, right? And no Muslim would ever dare to say anything disrespectful to the Prophet ﷺ, right? No sane Muslim would ever dare to say that, right? Now the question comes is that when we, for example, like live as a Muslim, how much respect and how much time should we remember the Prophet ﷺ? Now we should try as much as possible, isn't it? However, the Prophet ﷺ, there's going to be some people who are going to remember him very frequently, right? And there's some people who are going to be less, and that's natural, right? Because people are going to be preoccupied with other things. So the Prophet ﷺ coming into this world, being given existence, being born into this world, living, how happy are you that he came into this world? Like, in other words, how much joy do you feel when you hear about the Prophet ﷺ and him being this amazing person and how much he affected people's lives and he brought them close to Allah? How happy are you at this? Are you very happy? Of course, we're all happy. Now, this is something which every Muslim shows or celebrates when they say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because we are thanking Allah, we are asking Allah to send salutation to the Prophet Sallam, because we are so happy with the Prophet Sallam, we are overjoyed. Now, is there a particular time for this that we celebrate? So, for example, the Prophet Sallallahu was born in the month of Rabiul Awwal. We don't exactly know the date. There's a difference of opinion. He died in the month of Rabiul Awwal on the 12th. He went for Hajj. He did fasted in Ramadan. He did so many things. So the Prophet ﷺ, his existence for us is the most amazing thing, and we should be celebrating it all the time. So to specify it to a particular date, a particular time, this is something which was not mentioned by the early scholars, like early Sahaba. We don't have any reports of them like annually celebrating the Prophet ﷺ's existence on a particular month or a particular day. We don't have that. What happened was, over the years, it was like roughly in the 700s after the Prophet ﷺ, there was a guy as a king, and he started this new sort of like tradition, which was getting people together, and the people would basically celebrate the Prophet ﷺ's existence, right, in a particular month, the month that he was born in. So this, it's spread across the world, and people thought it's a very good thing. Let's us do it as well. So people in Palestine did do it, people in Egypt do it, people in Pakistan and India, Bangladesh do it, people, from all forms of life and or places, they all do it. Alhamdulillah. So there's nothing wrong with, in other words, celebrating the existence of the Prophet ﷺ. However, believing that it's more rewarding to do it on a specific date, and believing that there's a certain way to do it, those are problematic issues. So if a person believes that you have to do it, for example, like by cutting a cake, or you have to do it by inviting everyone to the masjid and they have to listen to talks about the Prophet ﷺ, or you have to do it by taking out a procession of people and going up and down the road, or whatever, those need proof for that. So that's why celebrating what they call the existence of the Prophet, or known as milad means that to come into existence. Celebrating the existence of the Prophet ﷺ is something which is necessary upon all of us. But to do it in a particular date and believe that it's more rewarding on that date than any other date, or to do it in a particular manner, this is not permissible. If you believe it has to be done like this, it can't be done any other way, that's not allowed. Otherwise, it's fine. I mean, everyone celebrates Milad throughout the year. I think some people have kind of taken it to another level, extreme level, and it kind of like some people belittle other people if they don't do it like them. I think that's the big problem. And then some people on the other extreme, they totally negate like celebrating the Prophet's existence. Scholars consider it permissible to pierce ears and nose for women. Can we extend this ruling to other parts of the body? If not, why? So yeah, this is like a very kind of like a tricky question, because it's like the body is not yours. But then we know that Sahabiyat used to pierce their ears, and then when Muslims went to India, and it was a custom to pierce the nose, that this was allowed. So some of the scholars have taken the position that if it's not widespread, and if it's not something that upright women do, then you can't do it, right? But if upright women do it, then there's scope for it, because you have the clash of mutilating the body and decorating the body. So decorating the body, women are encouraged to decorate their bodies. Mutilating the body is something that which is not right. So when does mutilation become decoration? When upright women in the community, generally widespread, do it. And I said upright women, yeah, it's not just like any old random person decides to put something in their tongue or something. Or okay, is it true that inside Sahih Bukhari there are Shia Rawis, and how do we deal with that? Yeah. What I would suggest, Arnold, is study Usul Hadith. Usul Hadith, there are lots of things that people don't understand. Once they study Usul Hadith, all these issues become clear. Yes, in Sahih Bukhari, when they say Shia Rawi, there's a whole sort of like a discussion of what does it mean to be a Shia Rawi. And so this is why, people get a bit confused. So this is a very big topic. I wouldn't really have time to go into these details, but you would have to study Usul Hadith and the whole concept of non-Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah basically narrating hadith. What's the ruling of non-Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah narrating hadith? So it includes Shi'as, Mu'tazila, Khawarij, other groups as well. Ultimate Challenge Gamer, what's the ruling of writing Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and peace be upon you, after the Prophet's name? I heard it's forbidden. No, you can write it, but some people saw it as a bit of disrespect, that you don't want to write the whole thing, and so it's okay to write, especially when people are trying to write it quickly, as long as the person you're saying it to knows what you're saying, and it's very difficult to keep writing the whole thing again. But some people said, you should write the whole thing. Insurance is haram, but I live in a nation where owning a vehicle requires insurance. Yes, in that case, out of necessity, you're allowed to take it, because it's like necessity allows certain things in religion. Can you make a video with which vocabulary should someone start with, memorize, prioritize? Because I want to learn many words to use them, but I don't know where to start. And yeah, so if you go on my YouTube channel, I've actually started a series on vocab, so check that out, inshallah. Okay, Arnold, what about having intercourse with slaves in Islam in the past? Is there a limited number for that? Again, watch Sheikh Jonathan Brown's videos on it. Yeah, he explains it in a very good way. See, a lot of these things require understanding how historic context plays a big role in understanding things. Yeah, we live in a society totally disconnected from a lot of the cultural norms in the past, and so it becomes difficult for us to understand things. Okay, KT Kalkan, I read in a Fatwa in Hindiya, and Ibn Abidin mentioned that there is nothing wrong with a man removing hair around the eyebrows as long as it does not resemble effeminate. Is it permissible? Yes, that's true. Okay, YY SMB, how long does it take to mufti? It takes 60-70 years. Yeah, that's the real mufti, is someone who has the ability to be able to give fatwa. To train to become a mufti, to start the kind of journey, you can do it in 1 year, 2 years. That's fine. So a lot of people now that are called muftis are not real muftis. They're actually muftis in training. Until they reach 60-70 years and they've got lots of experience, they are muftis in training, you could say. Why now? People say it's because the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam wouldn't come into the room while Sayyidina Khadija's head was uncovered. I've never heard that. If a baby wheezes on the bed after the mattress has dried, we lie on, for instance, with wet clothes, would that make our clothes impure? If there was a transfer of urine, yeah. If the urine transferred, then it would. Okay. Sister Hamida says, I had a divorce with my husband because he was not practicing Islam, e.g. performing prayer, but now he's a good Muslim. Can I go back to him? It's now 2 years. Yes, you can go back to him, inshallah. 95 Gred is Adillatul Hanafiya min Hadith an-Nabawiyya. Yeah, that's also a good book as well. Yeah, you can have a look at that. Yeah, I've seen it. Okay. I've actually done a series as well on my uruk.com on my website. I've done a whole series on Hanafi fiqh from hadith perspective. Yeah, so it's on Tahara. It's on the chapter of Tahara. I was going to do Salat and Zakat and others as well, but I've done Tahara and I've gone through hadith, and it's about 40 hadith. Okay, why now? There's hadith to the effect that if a person stares into your house without permission, then you can poke his eye out, and it specifically mentioned that there's no qisas. So this does that mean? Okay, so yeah, so what does this hadith mean? So basically, the Prophet ﷺ, one day there was a guy and he was peeking through the Prophet's house, and the Prophet ﷺ had this pin, and he said to the man, he said, if I wanted, I would have poked your eye out. So, in other words, people's privacy is more important than, a person's becoming injured. So, in other words, if a person was deliberately trying to peek into someone's privacy and they got injured by the family because of doing that, then legally there wouldn't be any consequences on the family, right? Just like, if a person tries to break into your house and they get killed or something, there wouldn't be any consequences to that. So it's one of those kind of legal sort of issues. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should deliberately try to poke the eye out or try to injure them, but it just means that in the process, if they were to get injured, then it wouldn't be the family's fault. They wouldn't be at fault there. Okay, Sister Samara, wa alaikum assalam, sir, jazakallah khair. Why now with you? Why now? Why you? It's why now? Why you? I don't understand. Oh, is that your name? Why now? Why you? Okay. Okay, Ustad Muhtaram, Europa is getting colder day by day. Yeah, today is very cold. This weekend has been very cold in the UK. As you can see, I'm wrapped up. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. R.I. Kim, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much for your support. Alhamdulillah. It means a lot to me when you guys send messages of support. Alhamdulillah. It gives me support as well. Why now? Why you is. I'm just going to call you WW. Tuhfat al-Nikah by Sheikh Ibrahim Balampuri is a good book. If not, then can you. I haven't really read it. I wouldn't be able to tell you anything. I haven't checked it out. Okay, Samara Morgan says, I am a alim student and your lectures really help me a lot. If you explain how to do tarkeeb, then it would be very helpful, sir. Please. I do. I mean, it depends which books. The thing is, I know this question is asked to me by a lot of Dars in Nizami students, because when they study and they have to prepare the lesson, what happens is the teacher sometimes asks them to do tarkeeb of everything. I'm against tarkeeb in everything, basically. The main thing is students should try to understand what the text is saying. That's why I don't focus on tarkeeb in all the books. I just have certain books that focus on tarkeeb, and I don't believe that tarkeeb should be on. I do tarkeeb of Quduri, but I'm thinking of stopping it. Hidayah, I don't believe there should be tarkeeb of Hidayah of everything. I don't believe even in things like Hadith there should be tarkeeb. It's only for Quran. Tarkeeb should only be for Quran. Wa alaikum assalam, Danielle. Is it permissible to watch fireworks? Yes, permissible. It's permissible to watch fireworks and to listen to them and to even complain to the police about them. All permissible. I mean, there's nothing wrong with fireworks. It's a form of celebration. It's nothing to do with any sort of like, you're not participating in any sort of religious kufr or anything like that. Okay, Sister Alina, please advise me how to improve my Arabic vocabulary. My vocab is very poor. So basically, what I would say, continue to answer the questions I put up on Twitter, alhamdulillah, and try to maybe read a little bit on your own. So read a bit and find out the meanings of the words in the dictionary, and slowly you'll improve, inshallah. Okay, this name, look at this name. Rama Aram. Okay. Wa alaikum assalam. What do you think about using a ring structure as a tool for Quranic interpretation? Did any of the classical scholars recognize the usage of ring structure? The ring structure, I don't understand what the ring structure. If you can let me know what the ring structure is, or maybe leave some sort of like a link so I can read more about it. I don't know what you're talking about. So if you can give me some more insight into it. Ashil Latif, I would like to study Arabic language, especially to understand our Quran. Do you conduct Arabic online class? I don't conduct any Arabic online class, but I do have online. We have a group, mashallah. I have an excellent group of people. Sister Amina, mashallah. I don't know if she's here watching or not. So she's the one that usually. Sister Yamna, maybe you can help Sister Ashley out. Is it Sister Ashley? I don't know. Is it? How about this? Right. So they have this kind of online group that study Arabic, 17 lessons. And mashallah, they're doing very well, alhamdulillah. And they have a whole group, a WhatsApp group of sisters, and then a separate one for brothers. Okay, do they teach in Arabic in Benoria, Darul Karachi? I haven't studied in Benoria or Darul Karachi. I studied in Banuri Town. Banuri Town, they have a section for Arabic and a section for Urdu. So there's an Urdu section where they study everything in Urdu, and there's an Arabic section where they study everything until year 5. I think they're similar in Benoria and Darul Karachi, where they do like a short few years you can do in Arabic, and then you join the higher years, but you got to do in Urdu. Okay, advice on improving Arabic if going to study in Pakistan. I knew zero Arabic when I went to Pakistan. Alhamdulillah, and I came back with zero Arabic. Only joke. I came back knowing quite a lot of Arabic. So I would suggest you don't have to prepare anything before you go. You learn it over there, inshallah. Okay, Sister Hamid, thanks, brother. But some scholars say when you divorce, you have to marry someone before you go back. That's if the husband has issued 3 divorces. If the husband gave 3 divorces, then you'd have to marry someone else and then come back. But if he only gave you 1 or 2, then you can go back. What's the ruling of baby sick, etc.? Is it impure if it's transferred onto clothing? So if the child is still on milk, then there's scope for it. But if it's not on milk, if it's starting to eat, then you have to clean it. Okay, hi, hello. What is the hukum of sisters performing words where the ahkam around their voices, attending panels, softening. Yeah, so softening voices would be like singing, as long as they're not singing, like, oh, la, 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 one of those kind of ones, then there'd be scope for it. Yeah. So so the softening of the voice is that basically. Otherwise, I mean, as long as women speak to people in public, I don't see an issue there. But if you feel deep down that, you know what, I'm confused, I'd rather stay away from it. How can I be an ustad or a scholar? Study. Yeah, study, and inshallah you can become one. If you had the choice to go back to study, where would you go? What would you do differently? I think I would study more privately. If I could go back, I would definitely study more privately. I probably study mostly more privately. And the thing is now, like when I'm studying now I kind of know. Right now, I kind of know what kind of things to ask now. So it's a bit difficult now, because when I was studying, like maybe 90% of the things now that come to my mind, that I wish I asked my teacher this, it wasn't in my mind at that time because I didn't have experience in life. So a lot of students, when they're studying, they don't have that much experience in life to be able to ask the questions they need to ask in studying. So this is why it's a kind of like catch-22 situation, where what do you do here? You have to study, and in your studies, you're not going to have all the questions. But then once you graduate and you have experience, you get all the questions. But now it's a bit too late to go and restudy. So it's one of those ones. Yeah, that's what I would do. Okay, Jasat, what would you advise for alims whose fiqh is quite poor? What I would say is study fiqh properly. Yeah, don't be shy. Go study fiqh, even if you start from the beginning. Study fiqh properly, and it's worth it. You can do it in the less time, because now you're an alim, you've studied the whole thing. You'd know exactly now what to focus on when you're studying fiqh, and you'll have the right sort of mindset, and the questions will come up. That's what and this is why when I teach full-time students, which are mostly like late teens, early 20s, and I teach part-time students. Part-time students, I find they are more interactive when it comes to fiqh, because they've got so many questions, so much experiences in life, that they kind of pick up the fiqh faster. Whereas the full-time students, it's a lot for them, is just learning stuff. Okay, why you? Jazakallah khair for answering all the questions. Can you please kindly show us a book before you finish? Oh yeah. Okay, I think I know who you are now. You're the only one that asks questions about books. What are good places to study Hanafi fiqh around the world? Some of the best places to study Hanafi fiqh, I would say, Indian subcontinent, Jordan, Turkey, maybe even Egypt. Right, so you got that. So at the moment, I think Turkey is quite high now. It's a very hot place to study fiqh. A lot of the science, because a lot of the Syrian scholars have transferred to Turkey. So I think it's a very good place if you can go there. So can you please explain the issue of BU? Okay, the issue of BU, boo. I don't understand BU. What's that? Bid'ah. Okay, bid'ah, yeah. Okay, let me first of all answer these and I'll come back to that one. Should we study Quran or Arabic language first? Should we study Quran or Arabic language first? Okay, so should we study Quran? I mean, do you mean like how to read Quran? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying how to read the Quran, or are you saying how to understand the Quran first and then study Arabic language? So is your question basically A, how to read the Quran, like alphabetically, or number 2 is in meaning, understand the Quran, and then study Arabic? Okay, can a woman become a doctor knowing the fact of mixing gender issue? Yes. I mean, see, mixing gender, it doesn't mean that the issue with mixing gender in Islam is where there is going to be unnecessary intermingling, where people are, it's most likely going to lead to lewd behavior, fornication, etc. Yeah, but generally, I mean, becoming a doctor, and this is not the reason for it. The reason is to serve the patients, and in the process, they will be obviously treating male patients, female patients, etc. Yeah, this Sahabiyat, they used to treat male patients, they used to treat female patients. If one is still studying Nahu and Sarf, should he delve into fiqh and usul? When should one make the jump? It depends. It all depends on student, I would say. Some students can do it, some students I would suggest carry on. Studying Nahu and Sarf, you should also study with it application text, like study adab, Arabic adab, like literature. It's a type of interest, inverted tanasub between verses in the Quran. Okay, so I'll have to see it. I think I've heard of it. Haven't looked into it. Show me some examples of it, and maybe I can. Okay, memory. Yes, memorizing. If you're young, and I would say memorize. Yeah. If you're old like me, then I would suggest meaning. Focus on meaning more. Yeah, focus on the meaning. Focus on Arabic language more. Okay. All right. So going back to the bid'ah issue. So basically, when it comes to bid'ah, right, innovation is something. Okay, innovation basically is like this. Look, whatever is mentioned to us in the Quran, and whatever is mentioned to us from the Prophet ﷺ, and whatever is mentioned to us from the Sahaba, early scholars, then all of that, as long as a person acts upon this, right, is fine. That's all. Everyone's in agreement with that. Okay, the question now comes: what if something is not in the Quran, is not in the Sunnah, and is not mentioned from the Sahaba? Can we do it? Yes or no? Like for example, live streaming. It's not in the Quran. It's not in the Sunnah. Or for example, using mobile phones. Or for example, praying in a masjid maybe that has double floors, triple floors with carpet and AC. Not in the Quran, not in the Sunnah. So that's divided into two types. Either you believe it to be rewarding in Islam, or you just believe it to be something which is practical. If you believe it to be practical, then it's fine. It's not an innovation. But if you believe it to be rewarding, what you're saying is that outside of the Quran, outside of the Sunnah, outside of the Sahaba, there is something that is rewarding that's not told to us from there. So if that's the case, that's called an innovation. So for instance, like let's say I believe that doing a live stream on this particular date, on what day is it? 10th of November, Sunday the 10th of November, doing a live stream on this day is more rewarding than doing a live stream on yesterday, the 9th of November. So if I believe this, then I believe that this was said by Allah, but it's not in the Quran, not in the Sunnah, not from the Sahaba. This is innovation. This is right. This is innovation. Everyone agrees this is innovation, right? The disagreement comes amongst the scholars with regards to this one point. What's the point? The point is that imagine if there is a particular action that was done by the Prophet ﷺ or by the Sahaba, but it was only done a few times. But then someone later on wants to keep on doing that lots and lots and lots of times. So for example, like let's say the Prophet ﷺ, he recited Astaghfirullah, let's say 100 times a day. Someone says, I want to read it 1,000 times a day. Will that be considered to be an innovation? Like I'm doing it more than the Prophet ﷺ. Or for example, like the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed, 2 rakats, let's say, or 4 rakats, or 6 rakats, or 8 or 12 rakats in the tahajjud prayer. Someone says, I want to pray all night 100 rakats. I want to read the entire Quran all night. Can I do it? So some of the scholars, like the Shafis, they say this is fine. This is not innovation. Because the essence is found in the Quran and Sunnah and the life of the Sahaba. That the Prophet ﷺ did pray tahajjud. So if you want to pray lots of rakats, that's fine. More the merrier. Other scholars say, no, we should not be doing more than what was done by the early years. This is the position taken by Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and others, right, on this. That's the kind of like differing sort of issue. But the rest is the same. Hope that makes sense. Okay. Tell us a story. Tell a story from student life. Okay, story from student life. I don't know what kind of story I can tell you guys. I mean, I can tell you a story where basically You want a positive story, don't you? You don't want like a negative story. A nice life lesson. Okay, so a nice life lesson, I think, was yeah. I remember there used to be this one student. Yeah, he was from Malaysia, Indonesia. He was from. Yeah, he's from Indonesia, Malaysia. And he was quite old. He was like in his 40s, and he asked. He basically was once doing wudu, and he was doing his wudu, and I saw him every time he used to do his wudu, he would put the tap on, a little bit of water, turn it off, like wash his mouth, open the tap, a little bit of water, wash his nose, open the tap, and he kept on doing this, and I found it very strange that how comes this guy is doing this. So eventually, then I find out that this is basically him trying to preserve water, right? Trying to save water and use as less water as possible to do wudu. And mashallah, this is something that always stuck with me, because it's like sometimes we try to be so pious in other things in life, but the most simplest of things, which is water, is something that we forget. And the Prophet ﷺ, he told Sahaba about the importance of preserving water as well and not wasting it. So it was like I learned from that guy's action without him even telling me. I learned from him of the importance of the smallest things that we do. You can become close to Allah just by doing the smallest things that we do. So, I think that was a good lesson. I don't know where that guy is now. Okay, any advice on students of knowledge? Yeah, the whole of my YouTube is advice for knowledge, students of knowledge. Yeah, just work hard, strive, respect your teachers, try to do your best you can. Alhamdulillah. What is the position of an alima becoming a midwife, knowing the uniform issue? Yes. So, I mean, again, with regards to this uniform issue, in fact, there is a report from Imam Abu Yusuf rahimahullah on this, which actually says that if there's a woman who actually hires herself out to knead dough, or even like to clean someone's house, and she has to roll up her sleeves, then she's allowed to do that, because there's a need, because she has to earn. There is a need for it. So Imam Abu Yusuf's opinion, although this isn't the official opinion in the Hanafi school, but Abu Yusuf has mentioned it, as in the scope for her to raise her sleeves up to her. And he even goes up to saying that if she needs to raise it above the elbows, there's even scope for that. And if any other person sees it, then she won't be sinful. So there is some scope in these kind of issues, I would say. And this is why we need to study fiqh at a deeper level, understand exactly how the Hanafi school works, what the early opinions were, the official opinions and even the non-official opinions of the early Hanafis were. Okay, what's the difference of Muhammad Rasulullah and Muhammadun Abduhu wa Rasuluh? So Muhammadun Rasulullah means Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and Muhammadun Abduhu wa Rasuluhu, Muhammad is his slave and his messenger. I'm trying to grow a zulfa just like yours, inshallah. Any advice on how I can do it and what products to use and how you deal with it? Basically, the product I use is my hat. Yeah, so it's all over the place at the moment. I don't use any special products. I just use tea gel shampoo because it's helps my dandruff, and I just regularly just put some oil in there, some baby oil. I don't use olive oil because it just kind of irritates my scalp, unless I'm going to sleep or something. For example, first part of Surah Baqarah is connected to the last part of Surah Baqarah, second part is connected to last part, and all parts are progressing to. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I've heard about that. I haven't really kind of looked into it. Yeah, but Jazakallah khair. I'll look into that. Sounds interesting. You're welcome, Wasiq. Alhamdulillah. Sana Morgan, sir, is using wasila in our dua is halal or haram? As I have heard that there is a hadith where Adam alayhi salam uses wasila, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Will you please explain? Okay, so with regards to wasila meaning like you're asking Allah dua. You say, Ya Allah, please, but you're asking Allah to accept the dua with something else. In other words, with a good action that you've done. So all the scholars agree, asking Allah to accept your du'as through a good action that you've done. Like the story of the 3 men that got stuck in the cave, famous story, and each one asks Allah because of some good they've done. So wasila bil amal is jaiz. And even asking wasila for someone who's alive. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he asked Allah to send rain down and said, "Oh Allah, amongst us is the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abbas. Through him, please send down rain." That's allowed. Through people who have passed away, so most of the scholars are in agreement that you can ask Allah for dua through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you can say, "Oh Allah, please accept my dua through the wasila of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through the love I have for him," like that. You're allowed to do that. And some, like Imam Shawkani, has even gone to extent say you can even ask Allah for wasila through pious people as well. So you ask Allah saying, due to the blessing of these pious people, accept my dua. We can do that. As for the hadith of Adam alayhi salam, I haven't really checked it up, but I'm sure it's a weak hadith. Okay, Shadif wa alaikum salam. Barakallah for taking these questions. It's very refreshing and enjoyable, mashallah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much. Hi, hello. Hi, hello. Sounds like a very kind of chirpy kind of name. Assalamu alaikum, Ustad. Just to reword my previous question, my father would be on the right if I lead the prayer. However, since he prays sitting on a chair, his only feet have to be. No, his basically, I mean, as long as he's slightly behind you, he's fine. It's basically where his buttocks are. That's where it would be. Assalamu alaikum, Bush Miss. Soon after the death of a Muslim, what are the things to be done by others for the dead person? For example, if a woman died, the dead body should not be kept in a manner which is visible to men. Yes. So when a person passes away, you should wash the body, you should keep it covered, and then pray the janazah and then bury it. And if it's a woman, then obviously people who are non-mahrams should not look at the body. Had a question, Hanafi fiqh related. If in jama'ah due to uzr excuse one nullifies their wudu, they are standing at the front row, how do they leave the jama'ah and do they signal as they leave? Yeah, so they just cross through the lines, is fine. There's no kind of particular. Some Hanafis say you hold your nose just to kind of indicate to people that you have broken your wudu. So the holding of the nose is indication that you might have a nosebleed, because you don't want to kind of like just walk away. People think, oh my god, this guy's let one off. Yeah, so you do that. So that's how you leave. You just walk out. Okay, Rama or is it possible that Arabic letters have some kind of meaning? For example, root words in which share some root. Yes, check out my YouTube channel. I've done a whole series on words in depth. So go to my YouTube channel, check it out, words in depth, and I've explained this. Okay, I have a friend who's too scared to approach a sister, her wali, for marriage he doesn't want anyone to contact on his behalf either, fears rejection due to differing cultures. Advice. You know what? He's going to have to braven up. Yeah, so he's going to have to ask. Yeah, if he gets rejected, he gets rejected. We just got to, be, what's say about that? So, people get rejected. If I tell you about myself, I actually, before I got married, I had 10 rishtas, either I rejected or they rejected. Yeah, and it is difficult when you get rejected, but you just got to get used to it. Sahaba went through that as well. Okay, like the ghain is in a lot of root words, denotes a meaning. Okay, Bint Imran, alaikum assalam. What is your opinion on organ donation and resuscitation? Check out the fatwa by Mufti Zubair, but I agree with that totally. So Mufti Zubair Butt has recently written a fatwa. Google it. So Mufti Zubair Butt organ transplant. Check that out. I agree with it. Anyway, Jazakumullah khair, guys. I think that's enough for today. I think on the Curious Cat, some questions. Okay, this is a question someone's asked. If a woman engaged in sexual relations and had to go for ghusl, then she starts her period, would she still be obliged to do ghusl? No, she wouldn't. Right, she would not have to do ghusl, because obviously now it's been overridden with menstruation. If a woman was unaware that discharge breaks wudu, does she need to make up qada of prayers, or can she use ruling that if discharge is clear, not of foul odor, and not due to sexual desire? Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so generally there is this ikhtilaf regarding women's discharge, but if she takes that opinion, then her salat's fine. Okay, and that's it, I think. Should one get married during talab al-ilm, before, after, or during studies? I personally think after. Like when I asked my teacher when I was studying, he said to me, study afterwards, and I actually saw a dream once. So basically, I asked my teacher, and my teacher said, look, get married after. And I actually saw a dream. The dream was, it was Jum'ah, yeah, and I went to the teacher's mosque, and he told me to see him afterwards. So when I told my teacher that, he said to me, that's what the dream meant, that Jum'ah is the end of the week. And it was like, after the Jum'ah meant after your studies. It was something in that. So I just took that as yes. So I got married later on in my life. I got actually married when I was 29. Yeah, 29. Should one get married? So, salam alaikum. But for different people, it might be different. Some people might need to get married a bit earlier. Yeah, all depends. I have a question. How do we love the Prophet since we never met him? Good question. So what we do is we read about him. So read about him, learn about him, see how Allah talks about him in the Quran, and naturally love will increase. Impossible that a person would hear about the Prophet ﷺ and not love him. So read about him, his biography, inshallah. So Wasik says, Ustad Muhtaram, Khudawand, Jeshama Ra Umar, Daraz wa Barakat wa Mad Amin. Amin. May Allah give you long life and long barakat in your efforts and your time as well. Okay, so a good book I would suggest for those who are basically into fiqh. This is a very good book, okay? So this is I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een by Ibn Jawzi, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi. Yeah. So Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi has written this book, and this is a very good book for muftis, scholars who are really into their fiqh. It kind of gives you lots of detailed issues. I mean, we don't have to agree with everything in it as Hanafis, but it's very, very useful, I think. I mean, I've read through this book. Very, very good book, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een. I used it a lot when I was preparing for my course, Evolution of Fiqh course. Yeah, so this is a book, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een. Yeah, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een. So this is basically I'lam, or some say it's A'lam, is like difference of opinion on how you pronounce the title. But I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, Muwaqqi'een means signators, so ones who sign. A'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een means the announcement of those people who sign an Rabbil Alameen, on behalf of Allah. So the muftis are basically, when they answer a question, they're like signing on behalf of Allah that this is what the deen answers, this is what that deen says. Alright, so Jazakallah khair, thank you very much. Hey, where you doing Mawlud yesterday? I was having a pizza. You're having pizza, mashallah. Mubarak. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Habib, I have long time no see. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing well as well, alhamdulillah. What book for beginners will you suggest on Aqidah, talking about Ash'ari Maturidi differences? I would suggest a basic book would be something like, if you read Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar, the footnotes on Fiqh Al-Akbar, Mullah Liqari, I think that is a very good place. There's also a book by Ibn Kamal Basha where he mentions the differences between Maturidis and Ash'aris. I can't remember the name of the book exactly. He mentions about 13 differences. Yeah. Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Can you do a video on your library? Inshallah, one day I'm going to do a video on my library, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, guys. Thank you very much for being with me all the way throughout. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to share, and let me know what kind of content as well you guys want me to make as well in the future, inshallah. And inshallah, I will see all of you guys next time. And yeah, if I have missed anything out, I do apologize if I haven't answered it fully. I think I answered it fully. Anyway, Jazakumullah khair, and I will see you all guys next time. Have a wonderful weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.